Hello and welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm your host, Gary Core, and today my guest is Mr. Rick Lowe, candidate for judge for Delaware County's Court of Common Pleas. Welcome to Meet the Candidates.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. Rick, before we begin, I do realize that there may be questions that you may not be able to answer or offer an opinion about. If that occurs, just let me know and we'll move on. Okay?
Great.
Who is Rick Lowe?
I'm 63 years old. I live in Middletown. I used to be the mayor of Swarthmore. I've been a lawyer for 36 years, been an arbitrator and mediator for more than 10 years. I have a wife and two daughters, and am delighted to be running for judge.
What are the actual responsibilities of a common pleas court judge?
It depends on what section of the court you're in, and you don't know that until you're fortunate enough to become elected, and then you get put in someplace. But in general, uh, a judge would hear cases, hear disputes, and have to act fairly, impartially, and use as much wisdom as possible. Treat people fairly, give everybody a fair shake. That's a very important part of our philosophy, the Democrats. It's not just a question of some people in power having a chance at justice. It's a chance for everybody to get equal justice. My background is most suited to commercial and civil cases, but because that's what I've done as a lawyer. But I've also had some involvement with other types of cases. So I'm comfortable trying anything new. I have taught myself various aspects of the law different times in my career. So I'd be happy to do anything. I really would. And I've done a lot of work, especially in most recent years, with the lifers up at Grateford Prison. So through that exposure, I've represented a few lifers in their resentencing, and I've testified on behalf of a few. So I have some sense of some criminal law matters. I can't say that I know it as well as people who practice criminal law, but whatever it is, I'm ready to help out, and I have made up my mind I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to be upset. I'm going to be happy to help serve the people of Delaware County however I can.
You're also a nationally recognized attorney. In what areas?
Being a construction lawyer and being an arbitrator and mediator. I've been named in Philadelphia Magazine more than 15 times as a super lawyer. They give you that designation. I have the highest ranking that you can have from a group called Chambers, like law chambers, which is an international organization that evaluates lawyers for in-house counsel for companies to decide which lawyers to hire. I'm a fellow in the American College of Construction Lawyers, which is the most prestigious group of construction lawyers in the country. I'm actually on the board right now. I've served as chair of the diversity committee there. So that's just another group that I'm active with. I'm also a fellow of the Charter Institute of Arbitrators, which is from England. You have to pass a test, very rigorous test, in order to be an arbitrator there. I'm also an arbitrator for the American Arbitration Association and a mediator for the American Arbitration Association as well.
You have an impressive background, but why are you running?
Well, there are really three reasons. A lot of people have asked me this. One is, as I get older in my career, the thing I like to do the most is to be an arbitrator or a mediator. And that's what you would do on a daily basis, those two things, if you're a judge in the Court of Common Pleas. Arbitrator decides cases just the way a judge does, and a mediator helps bring the parties together to make their own decision. And judges kind of do that too, help people settle cases. So from a personal standpoint, it would just be doing more of what I like doing the most. Secondly, when I heard a year and a half ago or so that there were going to be 3 or 4 or 5 openings, turned out to be 4, I knew at the time, because I had helped other people run for judge, that there had never been a Democrat elected judge in Delaware County ever. So the idea of helping make history was very tempting and still is. But I also realized, having been a litigator for more than 30 years, that victories and defeats come and go. So even with the victories last much longer. The triumph, the feeling of triumph lasts a matter of days and then dissipates. Losses stay with you for decades, literally. So I knew that you can't run simply because you want to say you made history. So the real reason to run, and the reason it has grown over time as I get to meet more and more people around the county, is the most important reason, which is just to help people in the county. And, I'm at a stage in my career where the idea of giving back has always been important to me, but is even more important now. So as you get older, a little wiser, hopefully, you really are in a position to help a lot of people. And that dovetails really closely with the whole idea of wanting to treat everyone with the respect they deserve, not having a sense in the courthouse that it's a question of who you know, and make everyone feel as if he or she is being treated with the same respect, dignity, and getting a chance to be heard. It's very important for people to know they've had a chance to be heard. If they get it off their chest, they are going to be, and they know that you understand what they have to say, they are going to be much more ready to accept your decision or the decision of the jury, whoever the fact finder is. If they don't get a chance to be heard, they're going to resent it, and they will never feel as strongly about the strength of the court. So by coming in now and bringing in different people from different backgrounds than what's always been the case, often handpicked judicial candidates who have been active in Republican politics. Ours was a much more open process. We had to go to dozens of Democratic committees around the county, and then we had an election of the Democratic Party for the nomination back on February 24th of this year. Was held at Harrah's in Chester, which is a huge ballroom, and there were 1,000 people there. 873 people voted on who should be the top 4 candidates for judge.
So it's a process there.
So that was a huge process where everybody from the county who was active in the committees had a chance to speak up. So that process helped develop and expand the sense for me that this is really not a personal thing. This is really for everybody.
Rick, I'd like to pick up on one of the points you just made. Many from minority communities feel intimidated and helpless by the judicial process. Most minorities feel that they are not treated fairly by judges and the legal system in general. How do you plan to address their concerns?
By treating people fairly. It's pretty much that simple. Listening, getting everybody a fair shake, and eliminating problems, just trying to look for opportunities where people can be treated fairly. And sometimes that might be systemic. I'll give you an example, and this is related to what you're saying. I developed a program to add mediation to mortgage foreclosure actions, which are not specifically problems of minorities, but certainly of people who are not well off, and which would include some minorities, not all, some. Right now, many other counties around this area require the banks, if they're going to sue somebody to try and throw them out of their house, require them to sit down and to talk with those people to see what they can work out. That's what I mean by mediation. Philadelphia does it, Bucks does it, Montgomery County does it. Guess who doesn't do it? DELCO. They used to have a program, was not as strong as the other counties. They gave it up. That should be done. So that's an example of a systemic improvement that we could do if there's the will in order to help people who are in trouble, good people who want to keep their houses, some of whom would be from the minority population.
You know, Rick, I'm really glad you brought up the topic of mortgage foreclosures. But right here in Yaden, many people are either losing their homes or have lost their homes through tax liens. Would this program apply to those individuals as well?
I think it might be related. First of all, let me go back to the program just a little bit, and then I'll come back to this. One really good thing about the program I proposed is that the idea came from a housing counselor who represents consumers. But because I came from a law firm that represented a lot of banks, I went back there and was able to talk to them about the same kind of improvements that the housing counselor was looking for. And guess what? There was a lot of overlap. And that's what I went with, there's nothing in this program that only one side wants. It's the housing counselor wants it on behalf of the consumer, and the banks want it. So it's a win-win, and we should be doing it. And that's what to the extent we're going to have programs, new programs, we should be looking to do that a win-win. We're just improving, coming up with a better idea that most people can feel comfortable with. It's not a question of a revolution. It's a question of reform and improvements. Now, back to your question, the judges don't get involved with the amount of taxes, right? That's a legislative, that's county council, that's the Yaden Borough Council, that kind of thing. Judges, however, the tax liens could become part of an issue when someone may be losing their house. Right, sure. So that would just be one more thing that both the lender and the homeowner would have to consider in trying to work out some deal. I do not see an easy, I don't see this program as a panacea for that. I see it as a way to deal with that in the most practical and effective way without spending a lot of money on legal fees. Obviously, the homeowners want to come in. They have limited funds to start with. They're down on their luck. They might have lost a job. They have a sick one in the family. Some temporary problem got out of control. They need to get back on their feet. The last thing they should have to spend their money on is needless legal fees. That's not helping them. And it's not helping the bank, because the bank wants them to get back on their feet as well. So the more we can eliminate the needless legal fees and focus on dealing with other issues like a pre-existing tax lien, which isn't going to go anywhere, the better.
Besides the banks and the homeowners, who else would need to be involved in this program in order to revitalize it?
In the program that I proposed, I suggested that the Bar Association be involved in order to provide volunteers who can represent the homeowners and also serve as the mediators. Now, you could either do that or you could come up with another way to do it. If county council decided to invest more funds in this program, then you wouldn't need to have volunteers. You could have people who are paid to do each one of those roles. And the county does have some incentive to finance this kind of program because it keeps people from losing their houses. It protects neighborhoods. People are not thrown out on the street. I mean, there's lots of reasons why there's a communal benefit to keeping people in their homes.
Who would be in the best position to advocate for increased funding by county council?
I think it would be a mixture. And I think this mortgage foreclosure program would be similar to any other kind of reform that we might consider. And certainly there's a lot of talk about criminal justice reform. And what the Democratic candidates have been saying, and that's the judicial candidates, county council candidates, and the DA candidate, is that we all would come in ready to talk with one another, because so many of these problems are multifaceted, and it can't just be solved by one branch of the government. In fact, it can't be solved totally by government at all, and would need the input of social workers with the mortgage foreclosure, the banks, the consumer advocates, whoever is involved in social services in helping deal with the problem. They should be consulted as well.